Hey everybody, Ron Carruthers here. This is your Finance 101 lesson for February 1st, 2019 presidential edition. The theme of this is the losses always hurt you more than the gains help you. So as we're getting started here, we check out the new office. We're getting stuff moved in here. Don't really have anything on the walls. It's kind of sad actually. But I wanted to go over, let's get this video set up here. My phone. I think that more or less will get me in the frame. Um, I wanted to go over some basics for you guys here. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ron Carruthers. I work in all areas of finance, retirement, and college planning. Ooh, that is not quite going the way I want it to. All right, we'll kind of hold it like that. Anyway, I work really hard to be really knowledgeable in all these areas, and we try to work with clients that are getting ready for retirement, perhaps want to send a kid to college, don't have retail money. So we try to be smart on all these areas and help our clients make really good decisions with their money. And one of the things that the president tweeted out today was about how good January was. And it was. January was a great month for the stock market. All the indexes rebounded over December, but I thought I'd put some math to that for you guys. So here's your lesson. Buckle up. It's going to be a good one. And let's get started. So here are your numbers. In December, that's what the market did. The market did if you had $100,000, the market lost 8.8%. By the way, I'll get a whiteboard up here pretty soon and we'll have real numbers and real classes. But I didn't want to let this pass. So the market lost 8.8%. That means that if you had $100,000 at the beginning of December, you ended up with $91,000 at the end of December. That's what an 8.8% loss looks like. I know, we need a graphics guy. Anyway, now, what the president was tweeting about was the fact that the market had an 8% gain. And by the way, this has nothing to do about bashing the president. It's a hard job. I don't want to do it. I'm glad somebody's doing it that's not me. But the market rebounded 8%. So what that meant was your 91,000 with your 8% gain went to 98,000. What's that, 496? It's backwards when I see it on the screen here. Hopefully you guys see it the right way. So the problem is we had basically the same loss as the same gain, but we're not back to the $100,000. And that's the key lesson here. The losses always hurt you more than the gains help you. Let's take it a little more extreme, but maybe not. If you had $100,000 and you took a 30% loss, you would end up with $70,000. But if you had a 30% gain on that $70,000, you were only back to $91,000. You were still $9,000 below where you started. Why? Because a 30% loss on $100,000 takes you down to 70, but now you're only getting a gain on the $70,000. So the exact same 30% gain still leaves you short $9,000. And here's the problem. If you looked at your annual average returns, your return for those 2 years would be zero, right? 30% gain, average with a 30% loss. So there's a difference between actual rates of return and average rates of return. That's one of the things that you really need to pay attention to in your own money. It's why they say that the market averages 9 to 11%, but the average investor, because of some bad behavior on the investor's part, and because of some of the way the fees are charged and things like that, the average investor, it's out of focus here. There we go. The average investor only gets 3%. Not my numbers. That's well studied by many financial institutions, their number. So that's one of the biggest risks. One of the biggest things you can keep in mind is that the losses always hurt you more than the gains help you. So what would it take if you took a 30% loss to get back to $100,000? Started with 30% loss, you're down to 70. You need a 42.3% gain to get you back to your $100,000. Problem. It's a big problem. And so what do you do about it in your own portfolio? Well, let's cover some basics. I'll expand on these more later. But the first thing is you want to make sure that you don't have all your money in the stock market. I've been working in personal finance since 1990. And I've seen up markets, I've seen down markets. I remember the dot-com boom of the late 90s, the dot-com bust of the early 2000s, all those sorts of things. And what happened was, first of all, the average investor was not prepared for the market going sideways, just emotionally and mentally and financially. And I'll give you a perfect example. I think we'd all agree that Warren Buffett's a pretty smart cat, right? Good dude, Oracle of Omaha, smart guy. Had a great quote, when the tide goes out, you get to see who's been swimming naked. Of course, that could have been Jimmy Buffett that said that. It was one of the Buffett guys. But I like using that in finance because during a good market, everything looks great, right? Market's going up, everybody loves it, everybody's happy, and the minute it turns the other way, everybody's ready to jump off a building. And so one of the only times I've really disagreed with Warren Buffett was a few years ago. He was buddies with John Bogle, who founded Vanguard Mutual Funds. And Vanguard is kind of known for revolutionizing the industry as far as low fee, low cost, no load mutual funds. Which doesn't mean they're free, just means you pay less for them. And one of the reasons they do that is they use a strategy called indexing. And all indexing means in this sense is their biggest fund is the Vanguard Index 500. It just buys the S&P 500. So there's no real management on it. They're just kind of doing what the S&P 500 does. And so one of the few things that I thought was really not well thought on Mr. Buffett's part was his comment about his buddy John Bogle, who died recently, was the average American really only needs to have their money in a Vanguard Index 500 mutual fund. That's it. And one of the biggest criticisms of the mutual fund industry is that the average manager doesn't outperform the index funds. And that's sort of true and sort of not. And it kind of comes back to that average math versus actual math. In the one case, we took a 30% loss. We got back up to 40. We had to gain 42% to get back to the 100,000 we started with. But the problem there was if we averaged those, it looked like we were making 6% a year. Say it happened over a 2-year period, but really we didn't. We didn't make anything. And so back to what Mr. Buffett said, which was the average American only needs a Vanguard Index 500 mutual fund. And here's the problem with that. In 2008, when the market crashed the last time, that index fund lost 50% of its value almost overnight, like that. And so the problem there was you had a lot of people who lost money that they couldn't afford to lose. I mean, it happened, it hit the entire market. And if you didn't have any protection against that and you were getting ready to retire, you were screwed, because here's why. For every $100,000 that you had, now you're down to less than 50. And watching the trending of that, it took around March of 2013 before you were back even again. The average numbers look great because the market was jumping, but remember, it was jumping on a much lower amount of money because you lost all that money. So were I to ever chat with Mr. Buffett, and I would absolutely call him Mr. Buffett, he's earned that. My comment would be, Mr. Buffett, if it's such a good strategy, then why don't you take all of Berkshire Hathaway's holdings and put it into the Vanguard Index 500? And what would he tell me? He'd say, that's crazy, we can't do that, we can't afford that risk. Well, Mr. Buffett, with all due respect, sir, who can afford to take that risk? You, a billionaire. And if you lose 50% of your money, he's still a billionaire. Or my average client that might have $500,000 or $1 million or $250,000 in savings. Who can afford to take that risk? So rule number one, the losses always hurt you more than the gains help you, which brings us to what should you do? Should you go into bonds? Should you move the money to cash? Here's what we prefer. There is an asset category that behaves like AAA rated bonds. It has the risk of a AAA rated bond, the yield of a CCC rated bond. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, bonds are rated from highest safety to lowest. AAA would be the most safe. Really, anything, it's right outside of a government bond, if you will. CCC would be sketchy. We would call those junk bonds. How does someone get you to invest in a junk bond when you can invest in a AAA bond? Well, they pay you a much higher interest rate. So what we recommend for our clients is an asset that has the safety of a AAA rated bond, the yield of a CCC rated bond, so a much higher yield, and a standard deviation of 0. Meaning it does not drop when the bond market drops, it doesn't drop when the stock market drops. And so now there's a whole category of these. We won't go any more specific than that today. I'll go into this in the future. If you want to chat about this, feel free to write a note in the thing in the comment section here, and we'll be happy to sit down and chat with you about your situation. And we recommend that at a minimum, you have 30% in that type of account. And as high as 50, 55% if you're closer to retirement. You're always going to need money in the market. But remember, say it with me, the losses always hurt you more than the gains help you. Say it again, the losses always hurt more than the gains help you. Just burn that into your brain. We're never suggesting that you get out of the market. We're just saying, while the market's high, it's probably a really good reminder to rebalance. December was a good reminder of that, and make sure you protected some of that money so when the next 2008 hits, the next stock market crash like 2000, you protected yourself and your family so you can retire and hit your financial goals on track. Hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. We'll do more. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit a like, share it with your friends, write any comments of anything you'd like to see down there. Hope you enjoyed it. Happy Friday. Happy 1st of February to you. We'll be back soon. Take care. And I'll get a real tripod.